Good morning, everyone. It's Hanifa Menon from hearthealthbrainhealth.com, encouraging healthy grieving and mindful actions. Now, today I'm going to talk about something a little bit different and yet exactly the same as the other things that I talk about. So, I'm going to talk about sex and presence in sex. So, I want to make sure that you know a quotation that I came across that is by a famous doctor and personality from years ago and even currently in various circles. Her name is Dr. Ruth Westheimer. And I don't know if you know this name, but I had heard about her and actually heard her either on the radio or TV when I was growing up. So as a child. So Dr. Ruth was actually a very familiar name to me. And I would hear certain little snippets about what things she would talk about. At that age, I didn't even understand it, but it sounded very naughty. And I can tell you, here's the quotation that I came across today in thinking about her, and I'll tell you why this is on my mind that I want to share with you. So, first of all, the quotation is: when it comes to sex, the most important 6 inches are the ones between the ears. When it comes to sex, the most important 6 inches are the ones between the ears. So, of course, this would relate to mental health. This would relate to brain health. This relates to our presence in our experiences. And so today I wanted to talk about presence in sex. And I came across a different quotation by an author that I have spoken of before. It's Thich Nhat Hanh. And his quotation is: the most precious gift we can offer to others is our presence. When mindfulness embraces those we love, they will bloom like flowers. So let me say that again. The most precious gift we can offer others is our presence. When mindfulness embraces those we love, they will bloom like flowers. And I truly believe this. I believe that most people will remember when they have perhaps fallen in love with someone. And let's say we've even heard about those situations where people will say it was love at first sight. And how is that possible? You didn't even know anything about this person. You think, well, were they gorgeous? Were they so handsome that it just took your breath away? And sometimes that's the case. And more often than not, it's two people just very present. And if you've been in a situation like that, even if you haven't had a long term relationship, you will know that sometimes it's a briefest look from one person to another that has such a chemistry in it. And other times, a couple can be together and they don't give each other those sorts of looks anymore. So sometimes people will say, well, it's because we got used to each other. We actually don't, do anything different. Some people think that it's about positions they're not doing. It's not no variety in sex. And I will say that sometimes that's true. And I will say more times it's that people are not present. So you will know that at the beginning of a relationship, even holding hands seems so special. There's just something so special about that brief touch, that warm embrace, that long, meaningful hug. And over time, these are often taken for granted. Now, oftentimes in taken for granted, it's also fused with that energy or information of something that's not so good in a relationship. So over time, there might be an argument that's been had in the morning and it could be about something completely different. Or it could be the person is thinking about the next thing to do after sex. Or it could be the time of sex. So it could be, oh, the kids are going to be home in 20 minutes. So we've only got 20 minutes. Or it could be, I really have to get back to work, or I've got to do this right after, or maybe in 20 minutes we can have sex. So things are scheduled in. And of course, many people are scheduling in a time or a day to have sex. And I think that's good in some situations, although it becomes very structured and it's not as free. So I think that when sex is had with the mindset of fully being present in the moment, and I believe that that is what brings about the best experiences. And then I thought, I'm going to look up what kind of things constitute sex. Like, so many different people have different ideas of what sex means to them. And this is interesting because I had this conversation with a good friend recently, and I can say that it was neat to discover different perspectives on what constitutes sex. And I found some other information. So this is right from Canada. It was a website that I came across which talks about what is sex. So the center is called the Sexuality Education Resource Center, and it's in Manitoba, in Canada. And here's a quotation that they've got about what is sex. So they say CERC, which is what the short form of their name is, defines sex as an activity in which one, two, or more people use words or touch to arouse themselves or each other. Okay, so one, two, or more people use words or touch to arouse themselves or another. So we know that these days, and actually many years, we've heard about words being very sexual for people. So sometimes it's poetry, sometimes it's those romantic poems, sometimes we can read Shakespeare, and we see this romance that feels very sexual. Sometimes it's speaking to someone. In the past, there would be phone lines for sex lines. Nowadays, a lot of people are communicating through internet, and sometimes it's words, and sometimes they're sharing pictures, sometimes there's videos. We know about all of these things that happen. So, what happens in a relationship related to sex? And we know that sex is one, two, or more people. So, sometimes it's people alone having sex. And I remember the first time I heard the word masturbation was through Dr. Ruth. I remember at that time not knowing what this meant, but then learning that, this is kind of a taboo subject. And in many religions, it is. And many people have been raised with religion. And I'm not encouraging one way or the other, but I will say it's important to understand your own experience of what is sexual for you or what does sex mean for you. And it's also important to understand presence because you can understand that if you don't water a plant that you have, it's not going to survive. So if you don't give it some attention, it won't survive. If you don't give your relationship the attention, even sexual attention, that it requires for healthy blooming, it will not survive so well. Now, I don't believe that sex keeps a marriage together, but I can say that I believe that sex or sexual intimacy can really hold a relationship. So again, it could be as simple as a look, a word, a touch, and there's a different energy when someone is present in those times. So I had an experience in my life where I always had a goodnight kiss before I went to bed. So I always received a goodnight kiss, and it was so lovely initially. And over time, it became one of those things that was kind of checked off the list. But I felt no presence in that experience. So even though I think I was very lucky, I think there's a lot of people who don't get a goodnight kiss before they go to bed. And I think it's beautiful to have that. At the same time, when the quality of it isn't there in terms of full presence, it's not the same experience. So that's as simple as a kiss. What about a touch? Same thing, right? If people are holding hands and it seems, oh, it's so lovely. If a person isn't present even while holding hands, which means that the focus and awareness is there, or at least some focus and awareness is there, or there is some loving connection with words, with actions, with intimacy itself. So again, sex in any form that people are enjoying together. Again, that word enjoyment, right? So understanding what you might like most or the other person might like most if you are in a relationship. And if you're alone, you of course will know what you like most. In those times when people are, let's say, masturbating, I find that people will either have guilt about doing this action or they really enjoy the experience because they know exactly what they like. And sometimes people can't communicate what they like to another person. So that's very important to be able to learn to communicate with your partner. And understanding yourself first before you understand your partner also, and sharing these details is a beautiful connection to have. So today, I'd like you to sit for 5 minutes after this video and think about what, first of all, do you think constitutes sex? And how present are you in your experience? So just because you've blocked off a time to have sex with your partner, are you present in that time? Or are you thinking about the next thing to do? Are you enjoying your experience? And if you're not present, I suspect you're enjoying it less than you might have the potential to do. I will say that there's a lot of people that think that reaching climax is the show of they've been present during sex. And I don't believe that's true because some people climax easily, some people climax less easily, and that's really not what people talk about in terms of their great sex. They do talk about connection with their partners. So, in this, I will say that that is a really big detail. So, sit down after this video and figure out, what does sex mean to you, and are you present in your sexual experiences? I hope you are, and I hope this video reminds you to be so. And I remind you, transform your mind and transform your life. Have a great day, everyone.